Now, today we are learning about design principles and how to compose an image or an artwork uh, in a visually appealing way. Uh, so, do you know what is composition? What do you mean by composition? Composition means placement or arrangement of visual elements in art. Uh, organization or the organization of the element of art according to the principles of design helps achieve a sense of unity within an artwork. Work of art is said to be aesthetically pleasing if the elements within the work are arranged in a compositional way. Uh, you will understand this if we think about music composition. You know that when composing music, there are different instruments and different parts played by those music instruments, and you create them, uh, take them together in a with using some principles in a nice way, so which is pleasing and which we will like to listen. Just like that, uh, we can visually compose something, uh, the what we see. So uh, composing, uh, arranging, or uh, organizing these elements of art, like those instruments in music, what we have is elements of art like lines, shapes, colors, forms, as we discussed in the previous session, forms, what else, textures. Those elements of arts we are organizing in a way which is pleasing. To organize them, we use principles of design. Uh, so then the final outcome will be very aesthetically pleasing, that we would like to see, and we will achieve a sense of unity, uh, just like a beautiful song. So that is composition. In composition, we use elements of design and principles of design. Elements are the parts, and it creates the structure of the artwork. And principles of designs are the concepts. They affect content and meaning of the artwork. Uh, the if we have a line in a visual, in a picture, it's just a line. And if we are using design principles to play with this line, then it will become uh, a meaningful artwork. So, by applying the principles of design, the artist or designer controls and integrates the art elements, building relationships that are harmonious and yet varied enough to create excitement, to create a well thought out composition. So, before moving into design elements, design principles one by one, I thought I should show these images to you. You will get an idea of uh, the visual weights, uh, like just the objects has weight in visually, uh, it gives a weight mm, to the objects. Like in this picture, the center ducks draws your eyes most. The reason is contrast. These all ducks are in same size, but this draws eye. That means because this is contrast, it gives more weight. So that idea is called visual weight. පැහැදිලිද ඒක? ඒ කියන්නේ visual එකක තියෙනවා එක එක elements වල එක එක weights එක එක බරවල් තියෙනවා. එතකොට අපිට මේකේ මේ contrast එක effect කරනවා මේක තමයි අපි focus කරන්න ඕනේ element එක කියලා. So those contrast is the kind of design principle. එතකොට මේ contrast වගේ එකක් දැම්මහම අපි focus එක කොතනද යන්න ඕනේ කියලා අපිට idea එකක් දෙනවා. I think you get it. So then, which one draws more attention? This front duck. So, this visual weight is created by the depth and the size. With this distant duck and with this distance, you create depth in this image. And the scale is up. So this depth and scale give you a visual weight. So this has more weight than this one. This has more weight than this one. And the color. We have not discussed about color yet, but you get the idea that color gives a meaning to the image. So which duck looks cold? Give me an answer. Which duck? Okay, the blue one looks more cold. And if you are using this in an option like, for example, in a fuel tank, if these ducts are buttons, so this means for full, half, and empty. Which colors you're going to use? Obviously, for the empty or the warning, you use red and green and blue. This green or yellow and blue for the full. So likewise, it gives a meaning. And these ducks create a pattern. Repetition change the perception. You feel it like a line that they all goes through one direction, a flow. So it changes your perception. What about this? Wherever a pattern is broken, that's where we focus. You see a line of ducks with a gap. Why don't you just see 8 ducks? This pattern creates line. And what about this? You see a square. This is called edge tension. that you frame something, that you uh, uh, you see a square, or the edges. The edges define a shape, just the edges. The previous one, this is called line tension. There's a, even though there's a visual, a picture, but they are aligning as a line, then you feel it like a line. Not, you are not going to count the numbers of the ducks. That's called line tension. This is called edge tension. And do you feel that the uh, ducks that they are aligned seem more related? This, these two, these two related, you feel it more related than this one. This is uh, not aligned. These three, these two, you feel them related. These two, that's what alignment do. And the closer ducks to each other, you recognize these as groups. That is called proximity. And a straight line. This straight line give you the idea of that it goes to the infinity. That it has a long way to go. So the movement is into this direction. It's just a line. You don't see a movement here. But those straight lines, you feel that the train is going this way. And the curved line gives a direction from one end to another end. The movement is from here to here. The curved line doesn't give a long distance. So this is just a rough idea of design principles that can be used in your work. That I found this in a website, so I thought it might be very clear for you guys because you can clearly use them in your work. So now we'll go to design principles properly. Uh, uh, Unity and variety. Unity is how the elements work together, fit together, so the artwork looks complete. Variety and assortment of lines, shapes, colors, and other elements in an elements of an artwork. Sorry for a typo here. Uh, in an artwork. So the balance, we have symmetrical, asymmetrical, and radial balance, pattern, emphasis, rhythm and movement, proportions. There are a lot of words uh, uh, are used to explain these principles of the design, and these are not the principle of designs. There are lot more, but I'm going to explain these since these are the major ones, and there are few subcategories in these principles also. We'll talk about unity. Unity is the as it's more uh, easy if you describe it as oneness, togetherness. And this is also called as harmony. Unity and harmony is the same. It is the feeling of harmony between all parts of the work of art, which creates sense of completeness. When you feel that this artwork is one piece of work, that is unity. But still, it has to be a variety. Like in one artwork, a variety or differences uh, is the one that gives a visual and conceptual interest. Even though it is harmonized well, uh, if it is just a single thing, not much art elements are used, design elements are used, so then uh, it is not much interesting. So the variety is what makes it interesting. We'll look into the images, then you will understand. Unity and variety are the cornerstones of a composition. When they are combined effectively, we can create compositions that are both cohesively and lively. Look at these images. Here you feel it as one image, but it has so much design elements. Design elements are played in different ways, but you feel it as one. So that's unity and variety, which makes it interesting. Here, it's actually the sense that you feel that this is a beautiful photograph, that is a beautiful picture, that you feel that wow. So that feeling is described as unity and variety. Uh, it is the, as I mentioned earlier, it is the cornerstones of composition. If it is well composed, then you feel it. See the togetherness. It's well balanced. You feel it complete. Look at this now. Just even an artwork or poster. Very well composed. You feel that it is well composed. Look at this picture. And next one is balance. Balance is the distribution of visual weight or force within a composition. Uh, like uh, you can remember the visual weight we discussed, and negative and positive shapes can work together, create an equilibrium among compositional units, regardless of their size, weight, or shape. So, if the design was a scale, these elements should be balanced to make a design feel stable. තේරුණාද? ඒ කියන්නේ balance තරාදියකට දැම්මා වගේ හැමතිස්සෙම අපිට stable feeling එකක් දෙන්න ඕනේ. එක පැත්තකට වැටෙනවා කියලා හිතෙන්නේ නැති වෙනවා. So there are three types of balancers. symmetrical, asymmetrical, radial. You understand these words actually. Uh, Symmetrical is balanced into two sides. Uh, that asymmetrical is the balance of the visual elements that do not mirror each other. Uh, Either sides of an axis are different, but it still looks balanced. And radial is uh, it's created when shapes or volumes are mirrored both vertically and horizontally, with the center of the composition acting as a focal point. I think you guys understand it. Look at the images. Symmetrical balance. This one has a radial balance. See the lines that goes through to all the corners of the image. Even without those lines, you feel this image is balanced. It can be the contrast, it can be the light. Check the lighter area and the darker area in this image, well balanced. So the next design principle is pattern. You can create ideas through patterns. So pattern is a design created when visual element is symmetrically repeated over an extended area. So when the elements are repeated, it creates a pattern. Simply the repeated lines. So this is the pattern created. The repetition. This is also described as a repetition also in as a design principle, pattern or repetition. Look at this one, beautiful pattern. See that like we discussed earlier with those ducks, when the pattern is disturbed, it becomes the focal point. It becomes the attention point of the image. A very nice picture. Look at this pattern. Now you can see how those design elements are placed here. Colors, textures. Next one is rhythm. Rhythm is the sense of movement that is created by repetition of multiple units in a deliberate pattern. Just like in music, uh, you get the idea of rhythm and rhythm in music and dancing, but in visuals also there's rhythm. So it creates with the repetition of design elements and the movement. Movement is the path of viewer's eyes take through the work of art. often to focal areas. Such movements can be directed along lines, edges, shape, and color within the work of art. This movement can be described. Okay, let's see. Can you see a rhythm here? How these lines create a rhythm of visuals. Look at these images and try to identify the concept of rhythm. The rhythm can be created in repeating uh, shapes or lines in same size or in a radial way. Like this scale is going lower than and the space is getting closer when it goes up, but it creates a rhythm, a visual rhythm made by the repetition and the movement of eye. Can you feel that our eyes goes like this from one end to the other? Look at the curves created by this image and how our eyes තේරෙනවනේ අපේ ඇහැට movement එකක් එනවා කියලා. We are drawing those curves in our minds. And here, what is used is again the rhythm is disturbed by the kid. So that kid become the focal point. It draws attention when the rhythm is disturbed. Parallel intervals of those. And this visual rhythm of the sky goes from left to right. You get that? And this one, the staircase gives a rhythm, and the space is that it's like the eye goes from the bottom to the up. And when we see that child with the book, our eye stops there. The repetition creates visual rhythm. See this one. Here, when capturing motion, the movement of eye, that when you capture a motion, it is created with the design elements. Look at this hair of this kid. Those lines suggest motion. This one. Very beautiful. Can you see the lines and the feel of motion? Here, how it creates the movement of eye. That it's like we are also drawing a circle with our eyes along with the ball. The next one is emphasis. You know what emphasis is? That we are highlighting something. Is the emphasis is the special attention given to some aspect of a composition to increase its prominence. So when we අපි මොකද කියන්නේ අර ඇඟිල්ලෙන් ඇනලා පෙන්වන්න ඕන වුණාම when we focus on something when we draw attention we do emphasis. The focal point is compositional device used to create emphasis. Both emphasis and focal point are used and conceptual impact. Here, the can is emphasized here. So, the wooden peg is emphasized. It is done by this focus also again. Photo එකේ focus එකන මේක emphasize කරලා තියෙනවා. That wooden peg is focused properly. And the placement. When we do emphasize it. Here. How they have emphasized here? Any idea? By breaking the pattern. When it is different from the other objects, the blue glass is emphasized it. So then, scale and proportion. You can play with scale and proportion also. Scale and proportion now create two types of size relationships, both strongly affects compositional balance of and emotional impact. Scale commonly refers to the size of a form when compared with our own human size. Proportion refers to the relative size of visual elements within an image. Proportion is the feeling of unity creates when all parts relate well with each other. When drawing the human figure, proportions can refer to the size of the head compared to the rest of the body. When we are drawing human figures, the proportion is defined with relation to the head. Like you may have 9 heads, 6 heads, 7 heads proportions. I think you have an idea already on what proportion is. We'll see how it is used in pictures. Here, the scale they have been used. The boats are small and it is focused on the landscape. And you feel that these flower trees are huge. Here, the tent is very small. With the scale of the tent and the proportion of this tent, you feel that this landscape is very huge. It's a very freezing environment. You get that feeling that you're alone in a very vast, huge environment. Even the space they have given to the background of the image with the sky and everything, how the scale and proportion is used. In which scale you are going to show something. This is more focused on the rabbit. You read into details of the rabbit. So it's you can decide what are the elements you are going to express. See here, this is not just one design principle is used in one picture. So you can feel now you know the contrast balance. You can feel the radial balance even in this picture and see the proportions. It's perfectly placed. Unlike the wedding photography in Sri Lanka. Here we don't have this kind of wedding photography. Anyway, that was an award-winning photograph. Here the motion, movements, balance, everything is there. How it is, how the that subject is placed in the middle with these lines, very well balanced lines, and the proportions. So that's all about the design principles. Then I'm going to discuss you about few composition techniques, that how you can practically do this. Do you have any questions to ask for about the previous design principles? Anything to ask? Was it interesting? Were those images interesting? Did you learn something?
Yes, madam.
Okay. Okay, then we'll move on to composition techniques. With these composition techniques, you can practically use them. Yes, practically use them in your work. So, first technique is simplification. This is a very important because even in those pictures we see, they were not much subjects, not much stuff in same in one image, just one subject, one or two. That's it. Unless it is a uh, scenery, even if it is a scenery. I'll show you this. Even if it is a scenery, there's only one subject, and it feels like background. Even here, scale is down, so you don't read the details. You don't see what these people are doing, how many are there in this boat. You don't look into that. You just get an overall image of the overall feeling of the image. So it is simplified, not too much details to read. Here, the background is out of focus. So you are focusing on this rabbit only. And even this rabbit, we don't see the pose, we don't see any action. It's very simple. Just the face. Just just this area we are focusing on. So simplification is the first technique, and use a limited palette color range. Use a very simple color range uh, in your work. See, even this one, the color palette is very simple, just few colors. See, even this one has emphasized, and the background is out of focus. We don't see much color in the background. So likewise, use a limited palette, reduce detail of unimportant areas. If you are taking a photograph, you can keep the background or the unwanted area uh, you have in out of focus. So you can blur it, whatever, or you can reduce details like by using scales. Likewise, if it is a website, uh, if you do not want to highlight some area at once, you can keep it very in a small font that you can just zoom only when you click there, and uh, you can read unless it is not readable. So that's in those cases, I will show you some graphic work also, because I thought it would be much related to your work. So reduce detail of unimportant areas. Use limited value range, the range between your darkest dark and lightest light. I didn't mention this as a design element previously. Value is, but I explain it verbally. Balance value is uh, the range between light and dark. So use a limited value range. Not very dark areas are also there. Very light areas are also there. We can feel it either it's dark or light. And remove unnecessary subjects from your artwork. Even when we are taking pictures, we don't keep the subjects we don't want to read. And the next rule is rule of odds. It suggests that odd numbers are more interesting than even numbers. These are not design principles, okay? These are composition techniques, not principles, right? Uh, these are just techniques that you can play with in your work, right? Uh, Rule of odds. Uh, it is mean that uh, odd numbers are more interesting. Uh, the reason is they say even numbers of subjects produce symmetries in the image which can appear overly formal and unnatural. This doesn't mean that we can't do symmetry with even numbers, but if we are using even, then it should be very symmetrical, very formal, and well balanced in a image. So in first image, first set of images, which one is more interesting? This two pieces or three pieces? This is more interesting, and this one. So it is that uh, a technique they are using uh, while using odd numbers. Here, when you're taking picture, this one is interesting. And if we have four, rather than creating this, you can create this. This looks more visually pleasing. Here, 3 and 2, it seems more interesting. Rule of odd is a technique that you can simply use. And then golden ratio and rule of thirds. You may have heard of these before. Rule of third, even in your mobile phones, in cameras, you have that grid that your screen is divided into sections. That is called rule of third. Actually, this rule of third is a simplified version of golden ratio, or you may have heard Fibonacci uh, spiral or Fibonacci sequence. Uh, Shall I read this out? The rule of third is a technique used to ensure the focal point of your painting is not directly in the center and that your painting is not overly symmetrical. What is essential is cutting the scene into third both ways. You will end up with 9 sections. The aim is to place your focal point at one of the intersection and to ensure none of your sections are the same. In general, a focal point which is directly in the center of the painting is not visually appealing for the viewer as it bisects the painting and appears unnatural. තේරුණාද? ඒ කියන්නේ හරි මැදටම තියලා අපි ફોકස් කරනවා නම් අපේ ෆෝකල් පොයින්ට් එක මොකක් හරි ෆ්‍රේම් එකේ හරි මැද තියනවා නම් ඒක ෆ්‍රේම් එක දෙකට බෙදනවා. එතකොට අපිට එහෙම බෙදීමක් අපිට ඉන්ටෙන්ෂනලි අවශ්‍ය නැත්නම් අපි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ 3න් එකක ප්‍රමාණයක්. ඒක more interesting. The rule of third is thought to be a simplification of the golden mean. The golden mean is a ratio that has been used by visual artists for centuries as an aid to composition. Now, when two things are in the proportion, this one, this is 5, actually in Greek. Greek what? Maths. They are said to be in the golden mean. So this is golden ratio or the Fibonacci sequence. Fibonacci is a mathematician. I think you may all have known this better than me. So Fibonacci is a sequence of sorry, I have put a next time. Sequence of numbers found by the mathematician called Fibonacci. So when you divide a square or anything into that, this is a rectangle, into that mm, Fibonacci numbers, then you get these lines. So it is said that when you compose something into this spiral, it is more interesting, and naturally most of the things are there are very examples in Fibonacci sequence that like this one. This naturally they are composed in this sequence, and how the branches are divided in a tree, how the petals of a flower are composed. They are all in Fibonacci numbers. That sequence comes in adding the two numbers in the previous two numbers in sequence. ඒ කියන්නේ Fibonacci numbers ටික හැදෙන්නේ එක හැදෙන්නේ බිඳුවයි එකයි එකතු කරලා ඊළඟට බිඳුවයි එකයි එකතු කරාම දෙකයි දෙකයි එකයි තුනයි තුනයි දෙකයි පහයි පහයි තුනයි අටයි ඒ විදිහට තමයි මේ Fibonacci sequence එක හැදෙන්නේ කලින් තියෙන numbers දෙක එකතු කරලා so that's a ratio found by this mathematician so that into that ratio any not just a square any shape can be divided so these are the lines created by that ratio so from this we create the rule of third the simplified version of this look at these lines with these horizontal and vertical lines the frame is divided into sections. So, as a simplified version of this golden ratio, we get these lines only and divide the frame into three parts. That's called rule of third. So this is golden ratio, the Fibonacci spiral. And even when we are taking a picture, if we compose it in this spiral, it's more pleasing. So this is rule of third. When we divided in these two sections, these 4 points, intersection points, we call them golden points. So if we compose something into these points, it is more interesting. So in this image, the most bright area is focused here. Okay, and even rule of third is described as we are not composing it in the middle and 1/3 of the frame. So even these three what ships or whatever, they are also placed in 1/3 of this whole frame. Here, you feel this one beautiful, and the eye it takes our attention into this whatever it is called. So the rule of third, this becomes the focal point. that which want to grab our attention is focused on this golden point. And geometry and symmetry. The next composition technique. Related to the rule of odds, it is the observation that triangles are aesthetically pleasing, implied shapes within an image. Can you see a triangle here in the composition? This one. You see this triangle, and it is well focused and on the mood and faces of the mother and the baby. See, composting triangles. Yes. The next most important thing, learning those rules or the techniques, uh, it is mean that these rules are to break. So it is just guidelines that you have when working with design and art, uh, but it is not always these rules. You can break the rules uh, to make interesting yeah, visuals, but use these rules only as a guideline to your work. So next, I thought of sharing you some graphic artworks of posters and some stuff because I thought because I use so many examples from photography. Uh, Sometimes you may be discouraged to work in artworks uh, because they are all award-winning photographies. We all can't be photographers like that. But you may have to work in artworks, uh, like for the websites, for the social media, uh, the phone applications, posters, or whatever. Uh, we all get some kind of chance situations that we have to create these type of artworks. That's why I use some of the simple graphic artworks to show you with few tips. Here, uh, it's about the focus that the old man is uh, has become the focal element and the graphic and that's the only realistic image that they have used in the poster. So other Ola from the doodles and all uh, surrounded. It's detailed, too much detail, but uh, we don't read one by one uh, of the doodle. Uh, we read them only after looking at this image. So you need to have a focal point uh, in your artwork. What we should look at first. So it gives an idea. So the next one. Look at this poster. It is about leading lines. Line that creates with the hand gives a direction for us to see. First, we look at the yellow uh, patch of the picture, and then his hand directs what to look at. Classic film festival, the logo. You get that. Next on scale. You can use scale most of the time. Three scales of typography or font is used in artworks, in graphics. So when you are doing this type of, not this type of actually, any type of artwork, just decide the size of your typography first for the headline, subjects, and the text. For the main idea you want to show, and the byline, the second scale, and the text. And here, do you feel the sense of scale by using these small silhouette images of the picture, that you feel that